Hello, everyone. It's no secret that the powerful Thor from the Marvel Comics is based on Scandinavian mythology. In the Nordic myths, Thor also has his famous Mjolnir hammer, a unique weapon that always hits its target and returns to its owner. Thor can also control lightning and thunder by pressing the hammer's handle, but most importantly, this weapon is so heavy that no living creature can lift it, except if Odin believes that the person is worthy to do so. And in fact, there were more characters that could do it in the original comics than you think. Today, we're gonna tell you all about them, but before we start, subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Let's get it on! Captain America. If you saw the last Avengers movie, you'll probably remember the spectacular final battle, in which the giant Thanos and his army are finally defeated by the team of superheroes. But before that happens, we can see a lot of other exciting things. And this is one of them. The supervillain knocks Thor out of action, and it seems that he is on the verge of death. But suddenly, the brave Captain America appears and saves his buddy. And he does it, of course, with the help of Mjolnir, proving that he is worthy of holding it. By the way, this also happens in the comic books. In Age of Ultron, one of the first films of the Avengers, Steve Rogers had already tried to pick up the divine weapon. It happens in an amusing scene in which the team is having a good time at a party to celebrate the destruction of Hydra. Hawkeye mockingly states that the whole story of Thor's hammer is a fairy tale to scare his enemies. Then Thor offers Hawkeye to pick up the weapon. He willingly accepts, but fails, as does everyone's favorite Tony Stark with his powerful superhero hand. And only Captain America manages to move the hammer at least a little.
Come on, Cap.
Vision. Here we have one of the most powerful Avengers. This android was created with the help of Thor and Tony Stark using the Mind Stone. And judging by this scene from Age of Ultron, Vision is also worthy of effortlessly lifting Thor's hammer. The Avengers were speechless when they saw him do it, although some of the fans of the saga claim that this doesn't mean anything yet, because Vision didn't use the magical powers of the weapon in this scene. Jane Foster. According to the Marvel Comics, this girl is the assistant of Dr. Donald Blake, Thor's first mortal host, and she is in love with this superhero. But not everyone knows that later in the comics, Jane becomes Thor after Odin sends his son to New York to live as an ordinary doctor. But there is a problem. At the same time, she is fighting cancer and undergoing chemotherapy. The magical power of the hammer neutralizes the effects of the treatment, and Jane's superhero alter ego is gradually killing her. However, the risk of death doesn't deter the brave heroine, who decides to fight for good until the end, and later becomes a Valkyrie. Loki. People who have never read the comics about the Avengers and have not seen a single movie about these superheroes have a hard time understanding about which characters we're talking about. Moreover, Marvel's authors have made this task even more complicated. Let's take a look at Loki, Thor's half-brother. In the canonical version of the story, he's a supervillain who fights against the Avengers.
I am Loki.
However, in a comic book series called Axis, everything changes. Loki's a good guy, while his brother becomes the embodiment of evil. All of this is a consequence of the mischief of Red Skull, who for some time inverted the characters' personalities. So when the roles are reversed, Loki is deemed worthy of using the hammer, just like any other worthy superhero. But in the original story, he was never able to hold the divine weapon, even though he tried repeatedly to do so. Beta Ray Bill. Only the most loyal Marvel fans know this hero, as he only appears in comics and cartoon series. As for the feature films, the creators have made some references to this character, but not everyone knows about it. In the original comic, Beta Ray Bill lives on a planet that is destroyed by fire demons. After miraculously surviving, he and other survivors boarded a spaceship and set out to traverse the immensity of the universe. One day, Thor attacks the ship and decides that there are cunning creatures inside. That's when a battle between the heroes begins, in which Beta Ray Bill suddenly picks up Mjolnir and demonstrates his superhero essence. It all ends with Odin's decision to forge another hammer, Stormbreaker, for this character. This new hammer made a cameo in the movie Avengers: Infinity War. Deadpool.
Oh, hello.
Deadpool, the most cynical and nasty character in Marvel Comics, can hardly be considered a noble superhero. However, he's also in the list of those who lifted Thor's hammer. You can read this story in the Marvel Comics. What does this mean? That the legend of the heroes worthy of lifting the hammer is a lie? Oh no. Relax, there's an explanation for everything. In this case, the prankster Loki gave Deadpool a fake Mjolnir. This, however, didn't stop the character from flying like Thor and even using the hammer to play baseball. Well, what did you expect from Wade Wilson? Magneto. The next supervillain belongs to another Marvel saga, the X-Men. Magneto is the nemesis of this group of mutant superheroes. However, there are references to the Avengers in this comic book as well. For example, in the Ultimate X-Men series, with his superhuman ability to control magnetic fields, the mutant takes over Thor's hammer and causes terrible cataclysms throughout the planet. All this to destroy humanity and establish a mutant realm on Earth. Fortunately, on his way, he meets the brave Valkyrie, who cuts off the hand of the mutant, as well as Nick Fury, who convinces the villain to come to his senses and return Mjolnir to its rightful owner. Superman. Wait, what's a DC character doing on this list? It's not a mistake. You probably know that in 1996, Marvel and DC decided to publish a crossover comic book. However, this is not the only story in which the characters of the two universes meet face to face. In 2003, the same thing happened in a story known as JLA Avengers. In this version, the two superhero teams fight together against the insidious god Krona, who is destroying multiple universes one after another. In one of the decisive battles, Thor voluntarily gives his hammer to Superman. The fact is that, according to everyone, only he had enough power to destroy the enemy. Besides Mjolnir, the character also received the shield of Captain America, but also for a short time. By the way, fans of the series believe that the whole story says nothing about Superman's greatness. There is a theory that Odin deliberately made the hero worthy just for a while. Red Hulk. Again, only the most loyal fans of the Marvel Universe know that there is a red version of the Hulk. They were originally sworn enemies with the original Hulk. The Red Mutant is actually General Thaddeus Ross, who for some time led the Hulkbusters Special Forces unit. But there's a problem. The General's daughter is in love with Bruce Banner, the human incarnation of Hulk, and later even marries him. In his desperation, Ross decides to become a red copy of Hulk to hunt him down. The outcome is that the two characters finally confront each other, but suddenly, Thor intervenes in the fight. It is at this point that Red Hulk first touches Mjolnir, but the most interesting part happens next. Both characters rise to the sky and fly into space, and the hammer suddenly starts to fail. So the villain ends up beating up the son of Odin with his own weapon. Silver Surfer. In 2016, Marvel launched a comic book series where Thanos travels millions of years into the future and sees an old version of himself. It turns out that in the future, the villain has managed to completely conquer the Earth and destroy all the superheroes except for Hulk and Ghost Rider. The former, however, is chained in a basement, and the latter is clearly not strong enough to rid the world of Thanos' dictatorship. But a story from the Marvel Universe cannot end this way, can it? Of course not. When it seems that there is no way out, Thanos suddenly finds himself in front of Silver Surfer. And when the villain asks why it took him so long to appear, the hero answers, "I was working on becoming worthy." As you may have guessed, the next moment Silver Surfer grabs Thor's hammer and begins to fight the mighty Thanos. Unfortunately, he fails to win. King Thanos comes to the villain's aid and pierces the Sword of Doom through the superhero. Ragnarök. At the time when there was a civil war among the Avengers, everyone thought that the god Thor had disappeared. Obviously, without him, the superhero team was less powerful, so it was necessary to use a trick. The fact is that the ingenious Tony Stark thought of this scenario much earlier. During the first meeting of the Avengers, he took a lock of hair from Thor's head and kept it. With its help, he was able to create a copy of his powerful buddy, which, however, was much more insidious than the original. Ragnarok has all the powers and knowledge of the god of thunder prior to Thor's acquisition of the Odin Force, godly stamina, warrior madness, and incredible strength. He also had his own hammer, which allowed him to control lightning and thunder. Although unlike Mjolnir, other people could lift it. But Thor's hammer was also held by his genetic clone during his visit to Earth 13584. Squirrel Girl. It may seem silly, but this secondary character from the Marvel Universe was also worthy of lifting Thor's hammer. Mjolnir helped Squirrel Girl during a fight with her own evil copy called Aline. After the enemy was defeated, the weapon was returned to Jane Foster, Thor's heir. Throg. But that's not all. Even a frog lifted Thor's hammer in the comics, although the story of this character is much more tragic than it seems. At first, it was an ordinary guy named Simon who tragically lost his wife. In desperation, the widower decided to turn to a witch to talk to his deceased lover. But the guy had no money to pay for the seance, so the woman turned him into a frog as punishment. Later, the animal met Thor, who was also an amphibian because of Loki's mischief. And then he picked up a small piece of the hammer that one of the goats on Thor's chariot had accidentally pulled off with its hoof. That's how the funny Throg came to be, and, technically speaking, he's also a little worthy of lifting the hammer. Hold on a second. Do you want to see some crazy stories from real life? Nothing dull, only action. Only adventures, chases and fights, love confessions and sudden betrayals. Don't believe us? Follow the link and see for yourselves. Our animation channel Private Diary reveals the deepest secrets. Don't forget to subscribe.